Hello and welcome to the Money Compass.
In each episode, we will be preparing you for your journey through the world of finance and helping you tick off the destinations on your financial itinerary.
Pack your bags and prepare for takeoff as you navigate your way to financial success.
So today I'm joined by the lovely Kim Raine from Kim Raine Coaching. So it's lovely to have you with us today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
More than welcome. So I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so ultimately I work with predominantly women. It is predominantly women, but not exclusively, but to help with them with their mind and their body and confidence. Ultimately, it's performance coaching and just looking at where their blocks are, where they're getting stuck in life and helping them move through that. And kind of ultimately it's holistic in that we look at the whole thing. You know, people might come for one thing, they might come because they're struggling with confidence and struggling to show up in their work or in their life in some area, or they might come because they're struggling to sleep at night, or that the stress in their life has become to a point where the scales are tipping the wrong way, and that's starting to really affect their everything, you know, their sleep, physically, mentally, emotionally, and really show up there. So I work holistically, and we end up looking at kind of like the mind and looking at the mindset around that and how we can look at how our thoughts can rule us. But also the physical side of things, looking at, you know, I look at nutrition, I look at looking at your sleep, I look at getting active and movement, and really, and then even down stuff like purpose, you know, are you doing the things in life that are making you happy? So yeah, we kind of go, it's a whole holistic transformation package, really.
Wow, it sounds like a huge array of different things that you're doing as well. Must be really interesting.
Yeah, and it's hard to pinpoint. It kind of goes off in all sorts of directions depending on, you know, the journey of the client. Everyone's journey is slightly different, but ultimately I always say sort of like the methods might change, but the principles are always the same.
Fantastic. So what led you to do what you do now, and how did you get into it?
I've been coaching for about 16 or 17 years now. Every time I tell someone that, you know, it gets a year further away, and I'm like, oh my goodness me. And I think for me, it's just seeing, you know, I've worked with a lot of women, and I think for me, the mindset side of things has become more important over the years. It's kind of evolved. You know, I started off with in the health and well-being space. And then it was like, well, actually, yeah, that is the foundation, but there's so much more to it. So, you know, a big thing that I help women through is menopause and perimenopause, and looking at hormones and the endocrine system there as well. So I just kind of like, it's just grown. And as human beings, you know, it's what people need. And ultimately, the coaching side of it comes from, it's all well and good having the strategies. The strategies is not the thing that's usually holding back people. It's never really a lack of strategy. It's usually a lack of implementing it and keeping it going and keeping that focus on it. So, you know, that's what really changes people, when you can get the mindset and work on like the identity shifting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of been through my own ups and downs. You know, I had my own business. I sold my business in 2019, and during having that time, I went through my own sort of burnout, where it just became overwhelmed with stress, completely fatigued and exhausted. Luckily at the time I had an amazing team and was able to kind of step back and let myself heal, but it was quite disappointing how long that it actually takes when you know, I always say to people, everyone thinks they've burnt out until they burn out. And when it really happens, when you really kind of hit that brick wall where you suddenly, you know, people get to the point where you don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to, you know, the things that gave you so much passion and purpose and so much joy can really disappear, and it can become really difficult to be showing up in work and stuff like that. So that was kind of part of my story, was going from that to building a business that's more sustainable and gives me more balance in my life. And that's ultimately what I want to help my clients get to, a point of whereby they can have a business that they really enjoy, but that isn't something that takes over them and becomes some kind of monster.
So they've still got that work-life balance. And
yeah, and it's so important. And I think really as well, more than ever, like post-pandemic, it has been huge, because, you know, I had clients who were kind of like maybe balancing stuff, but now the lines have become even more blurred as to where work stops and home starts. particularly for people that are working from home and in their, home. It can be like, well, actually, when the pandemic first hit, I had a lot of clients that would commute and, in the day and in the mornings. And actually, although they saw that it was a pain and it was a long journey, but actually that would be sometimes an hour that they got to read a book or listen to a podcast.
Time to themselves.
Or, maybe even do their Sainsbury's shop and then of course they were like, okay, well now I'm going to have all this extra time. So I'm going to have time to do all this stuff. And ultimately what happened insidiously kind of is that people started getting to their desks earlier and a little bit earlier and a little bit, I can do a bit more, and I'll just work a bit later, or I go back to my desk at 8:00 at night. And so it's just helping people redefine those boundaries as to where work stops and life starts, because that's super important in so many areas.
I think as well, from working from home, if you haven't got a separate space that you can shut the door on and walk away from it, it's so difficult to draw that. I found that you just naturally think, I'll just sit down and quickly do something. So I can see why so many people have had that issue.
So easy to do. Yeah, so easy to do.
And it sounds like you've adapted with your clients over time and even experienced it yourself, which has probably now helped you even more to be able to pass that kind of experience on to clients and help them through it.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that actually and for me, there was a point when I was like, hold on a minute, Kim, this is what you're telling your clients to do all the time, and you're not taking your own advice. Because what can happen is you get caught up in the moment and there's this needs doing and there's that need doing, and, help this client and go to this meeting and do all of these things. And in my head, I'm thinking, you're going against everything that you're teaching your clients to do. But actually, it's really easy to fall into that trap, because we kind of think, like I say, everyone thinks they're burning out till they burn out, and we kind of think we're invincible. And so what happened with me is I had this was sort of like going back 8 or 9 years, but my children were younger, I was running my business, it was half term or it's summer holidays, I think, and we were going on holiday. So I was trying to organize that and spinning all these plates. And I really kind of, like, my husband came home and I was in a bit of a state, and he ended up going, you need to stop. And actually, when I stopped that moment. I physically couldn't move for 2 whole days. I laid in bed, I couldn't do anything. And I was saying to him at the time, I don't want to stop. Don't make me stop. Don't make me stop. Because I knew if I stopped, I was going to stop. And that feeling, like I say, it's addictive. I speak to clients that we've been working through. I had a client this week. We've been working together for about 7 or 8 weeks now, and she got in touch and she said, I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed. I feel stressed. So I was like, okay. So we jumped on the call, and I said, what are you stressed about? And when we broke it down, she was like, actually, because of the stuff I put into place, she said, I'm not actually got anything really stressful going on. And actually what it is we're so used to feeling stressed. We're so used to feeling busy. We're so used to feeling overwhelmed that when the stress and the busyness is taken away from us, it can be quite uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And it can be quite stressful if you're used to being on the go and busy, to suddenly have this time to yourself. So, and that's kind of where I was. And I pulled back for a bit, and, luckily we were going on holiday. So we went off on holiday, and then I had some time off and came back to it. But actually coming back to it then, what I hadn't done was I'd rested. I hadn't changed anything in my life. Mm-hmm. So, 18 months later, that's when some stuff happened in my life. One of my best friends died very suddenly. My mum got a second diagnosis of breast cancer. She's still with us today. She's rocking and rolling years and years later. But at the time, I'd been treading water, and suddenly all these waves hit. Mm-hmm. I just didn't have anything in the tank to deal with that. And that's when, now looking back, I was like, I wish I'd made the changes the first time round. So yeah, that's sort of went off on a bit of a tangent there, but that's kind of...
You're fine. That's really interesting to know. Thank you. So from what we do as financial advisors, obviously we see lots of different clients. So you've mentioned lots of different reasons that they might be stressed and have worries and things like that. But something we see is money can have an effect in different ways. So some people can be worried that they haven't got enough money, and how are they going to survive because they've just got their state pension, and is their private pension going to give them enough for retirement? And the other worry can be sometimes that they've never had a lot of money, and then all of a sudden they get an inheritance that they never expected, and they've got this big lump of money. And is a worry and a panic of what on earth do I do with this? I've never had money before and not know how to cope with it. So how would you work with someone in kind of those situations, and what would you work through with them?
I think the first thing is, so there's a couple of things there, isn't there? Because one of the things that I know that comes up with clients of mine is, you know, maybe they are, like, you might have a big salary, but usually you live to your means, don't you? Yeah, you're living to your means. So you always have this feeling of, is there going to be enough? And what if it all goes? What if it's all suddenly stops? And it's a bit like you say, you know, when people get a lot of money suddenly, and again, it's a little bit like, if they haven't changed identity, they're still the same person. And so it feels a bit like I was saying about when you get used to being stressed, it just feels uncomfortable. It doesn't feel as you would normally be. So I think the first thing is to get perspective on things. You know, when we're worrying about stuff, and it's just to step back and think, right, what is the truth of the situation here? What's really going to happen? And, you know, quite often with clients, when we talk about the financial worries or anything holding them back, it's like, okay, let's step back and see where you really are, and what can you control? What is there here that is in your control, and deal with that and take action on that. And then actually, what is the stuff that you are catastrophizing, or maybe filling in some blanks? You know, the mind will always fill in blanks, so it will make up stories. And, you know, some of those stories are valid, but more often than not, they're based on past experiences, or they're based on something that may have happened to you. And, you know, I'm reading Julie Hunt's book at the moment. So she talks about money mindset in there. And, you know, ultimately it can be stuff that's happened from our childhood that can trigger things that actually aren't true and aren't relevant now. So I think it's really important to kind of really sort of zoom out and take a look at what's really going on and think, okay, what are the facts? What's the truth here? What can I control in this situation? What is out of my control? And maybe I need to either get some help with, come to people like yourselves, come to you guys, or let go of, you know, because actually it is out of my control, and I'm never going to be able to control it. So by worrying about it, I'm just driving myself crazy for nothing. But I think perspective is really key. And I think that when we are, you know, in as I've just described what my clients are going through, and a lot of people are going through at the moment, of the whole working from home, we have been on a real roller coaster ride. I don't think anybody's got away unscathed the last 18 months. And so there's a lot of uncertainty. And when we feel uncertain, that's when we really feel out of our comfort zones. It's uncomfortable. And, you know, we can be prone to making up stories. We can be prone to thinking, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And usually we're living on something that's happened in the past. It's probably not very likely to happen again. But actually the other part of this is, first of all, is get the client to get perspective. And then we really dial down into this whole idea of enough, you know, not having enough. And so we look at what you've really got and your chances of survival. You know, are you going to survive? Because ultimately when we're worrying, that's a lot of where our worries come from. It's, you know, our primal instinct of, am I going to be able to survive? The other thing that I was going to say was controlling the controllables, and just looking at ultimately what the truth is. What is the truth of the situation? And looking at where you're, you know, distorting, deleting and generalizing information. And I will come back to you on that other bit.
Fantastic. Thank you. So clients that might come to us and say to us about they're worried about things, obviously something else they think about is what's like essential spending, what's discretionary spending, and making sure that they get value from kind of every penny that they do spend, because obviously ultimately they don't want to be kind of just throwing money away unnecessarily. So what value would you say that coaching brings to a client that actually is really important for them to have?
I think that the value of coaching is perspective. It's to get that perspective, and to get, quite often when someone comes to me, they kind of know what they want to achieve, but they don't know how to get from A to B. And the reality is, even if they can see where B is, it never goes linear. So it's having somebody to help you on that journey. And ultimately, whatever area you're looking at in your life, it's an investment in yourself and into your future. So whenever I work with a client, it's like you're investing in your future self. So it can be, I guess, it's not a tangible thing. And I think that sometimes people do struggle to invest in it because it's seen as a thing. But ultimately, coaching is life-changing because it just gives you this opportunity to sit and untangle yourself and unravel and just get things in a straight line in order and have a coach bring you back to that line. And so ultimately, if you have a goal that you want to achieve, the reality is if you do it with a coach, you're going to get there a lot quicker and a lot easier. And ultimately, that can save you time and money.
That sounds like a very good reason to me, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
If our listeners wanted to get in touch with you and find out more information about how they might be able to work with you, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So you can get in touch with me on the socials. So I'm at Kim Raine Coaching. That's KIMRAINE, Raine with an E, coaching, or on my website, which is kimrainecoaching.com. So I'm on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn as Kim Raine. And yeah, just remember the E on the end.
Well, I'll never find you.
Yeah, or you won't find me, or you might find me. But yeah.
That's fine. We're going to put your details on the podcast anyway, so your website will be available for people to find you. But I hear you have something exciting going on as well at the moment. You have an online program.
I do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I have my online program, the Mind Body Reset. And this is, well, obviously I work with people one-to-one. So I work with a lot of clients one-to-one if they want to really do that deep dive into really focusing. And that's kind of like a 6-month journey. But then also I have a lot of the clients that I work with want that reset in their life. They want to be like, actually, now's the time to make a change. And for a lot of my clients, particularly the Mind Body Reset is ultimately women that are perimenopause, going through menopause, and want to look at their health. And it is health and well-being, it is mindset, but it's also, I've literally just come off from a call with the ladies, and it's about confidence, it's about finding your purpose, it's about deciding actually, perimenopause and menopause is an amazingly exciting time for a woman. It gets a bit of a bad rap because of some of the symptoms, but ultimately it's a time when a lot of the hormones that have made us put everyone else before ourselves made us just try, so we're trying to juggle everything. We've got kids, careers, all of home life, managing the home, all of these things. And a lot of those, partly because of the change in our hormones, but also the change in our life situations, children go off to college and university and etc. It's like, what about me? What do I want to do now? What's my purpose? And that's what the Mind Body Reset is really about. It's just about like looking at getting some balance in your life, getting that work-life balance, because it's a time when, actually, what do you do with this extra time? And quite often, particularly at this particular time in the world where it's coincided with, some of that extra time just goes into extra working more, working longer hours, working more, because it's kind of like, well, what else am I going to do? So it's really about that reset and looking at what you can be doing instead and where you want the next stage of your life to be.
Fantastic. So the online program, is that working with people one-to-one and doing some kind of group sessions as well? Yeah,
so it's weekly group sessions, 12-week program. Some of the ladies come in and we work on a one-to-one basis as well, and some ladies just do the group sessions. So there's the option for both options there.
Fantastic. I can see from your face how excited you are about it and how much you're helping people. Just like the enthusiasm from you is incredible.
I love it. I just love it. I love it because when you see the changes that people can make in their lives and you see the before and after, it is phenomenal. It is life-changing because we can just get caught up in life so easily.
Yeah.
It's easy to just get caught up and get your head down. And before you know where you are, you're just working day in, day out. And yeah. I
suppose it's basically just finding the real you again and kind of starting again, isn't it?
Absolutely. And like I've just been saying to the ladies on the call, what we and more than ever again, and I keep saying that, but it is quite an unprecedented time. It's like, what are you doing for you? What do you do to have fun? What do you do to relax and socialize? And a lot of women at that point go, I don't know. Or I work with men and women that are coming up to retirement and they're like, I'm nervous about retiring because I do not know what I'm going to do with this time.
Yeah.
And, and if they have money worries on top of that, then that's, it can be tough.
Which I would say that we find that quite a lot with clients, that you've almost got two groups of clients. Some clients are, I cannot wait to retire. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And they have all these things that they want to do. And then there's another group of clients that are like, I can't retire. If I retire and stop, that's it. I'm done. And they need something to keep them going and just ticking over, because I think some people have been so busy throughout their whole life. If they went from doing everything to nothing, and they've not got hobbies and they've not got things that they've liked to enjoy to do it themselves, they get to a point and then they have nothing, and they just switch off and they don't know how to cope with it. So
yeah, and it's and what a waste of everything that you've worked so hard for. This is your time to enjoy it. So yeah, it's an important time.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with me today, Kim. One thing I want to ask you is something we ask all of our guests. Being the Money Compass, we like a bit of holiday and a bit of travel. So can you tell me what your favourite holiday destination is?
So my favourite holiday destination is a bit boring, really. It's not the most exciting, but it's a place called Javier in Spain. I lived there for 5 or 6 years, and we've got a place out there, but I haven't been out there for a few years because of life.
Yeah.
But it's just it's just somewhere I can go. I've got my favorite place on earth there, little beach, and it's a nice little beach side where they do amazing, tapas and stuff like that. So yeah, not super exotic, but it's just somewhere where I go and I literally feel my whole body go, and relax. So yeah.
Perfect. Sounds like a perfect holiday destination to me.
Totally.
Lovely. Well, thank you for joining us today, and hopefully we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And with that, we've completed today's episode. We hope you have enjoyed following along with us today and taking another step closer to a financially secure future.
If you've enjoyed today's podcast, you can head over to themoneycompass.co.uk, where you can find out more information, hints and tips from today's episode.
If you'd like to get more involved, share your own experiences and learn from a friendly community on a similar journey to you, why not join us in our Facebook group, The Money Compass, where we will support you in navigating your way to financial success.
Thank you for listening, and see you next time.